Shine your light now. This time it's got to be good. You get it right now, yeah. 'Cause you're in Hollywood. 'Cause you're in Hollywood. Hollywood.
What's going on, guys? On this episode of Fan Film Friday, I'm checking out Spider-Man Final Swing by Six Side Studios. If you're not familiar, they make a lot of other cool content revolving around Spider-Man and some other stuff, so head on over to their page and check them out. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, on to the film. This one starts off with a flashback of Peter as a kid with his aunt and uncle at a playground. After getting bullied, his Uncle Ben tells him with great power comes great responsibility, and then Ben gets killed. Cut to present day, Peter's about to graduate and has been operating as Spider-Man in his spare time, fighting various criminals around the city. He has a board with names that he's been crossing off, leading to a crime boss of some sort. Eventually, Spider-Man confronts the boss, who, as it turns out, is the one who killed Uncle Ben all those years ago. Spider-Man asks him if he feels guilty about what he did, and he says the only thing he feels guilty about is creating Spider-Man. After the opening credits, Aunt May has a talk with Peter about him being Spider-Man way too often. He used to balance it with his regular life, but now he spends way too much time looking for fights. Once Peter starts college, he ends up missing his first 2 classes and gets a lecture from his professor about it. Then we meet J. Jonah Jameson, Peter's boss at the Daily Bugle, who is just as loud and tense as ever. When Peter shows up to tell Jonah he wants to take a break from taking Spider-Man pictures, he ends up running into Eddie Brock, who Jameson hired to star in the Bugle's new podcast. That night, Peter's walking home when he comes across a guy named Emil who's been stabbed. He helps him out and calls an ambulance for him. When Peter goes to track down the guy who stabbed him, Emil thanks him, acknowledging him as Spider-Man. Not sure how he knows about that. But anyway, as Peter suits up and follows the guy in the hoodie, he turns out to be Cletus Kasady, and Peter is suddenly attacked by Venom. During the fight, Venom gains the upper hand, until an ambulance drives by and causes the symbiote to freak out due to the siren. When Peter returns back home, May yells at him for continuing to be Spider-Man. But just then, a news report comes on saying that Kasady has killed 2 more people, and Peter's mad at himself for not being able to stop it. The next day, Eddie Brock debuts his new podcast, which is aimed at just trashing Spider-Man, and everyone seems to love it. Then, Eddie wants to start investigating the Kasady murders. Back at his apartment, Eddie starts to argue with his girlfriend, and she tells him that he's become a different person ever since he got the symbiote. So clearly, he's had it for some time before the movie even started. Just then, Peter comes over, and together, they find out that Kasady has been targeting criminals. With the crime boss set to be released from prison pretty soon, they decide to go see if he becomes Kasady's newest victim. The crime boss is the father of Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. So, after he's murdered at the hands of Kasady, Peter and Eddie bring camera footage of it back to Jonah, and suddenly, Eddie wants Kasady to be a guest on his podcast, which everyone says is not a good idea. Late one night, he finally tracks him down after Kasady kills some cops. As that's happening, Spider-Man goes after Kasady, but gets ambushed by the Black Cat, who believes that Spider-Man killed her father. He reveals himself to be Peter, and they agree to work together. Felicia shows Peter the latest episode of Eddie's podcast, where he outs Spider-Man for murdering both Norman and Harry. It mentions that his father created the Venom symbiote to help cure his mother's cancer. So clearly, they're taking some inspiration from the Ultimate Spider-Man. Sometime later, Eddie's interviewing Kasady for his podcast when Spider-Man interrupts. Eddie dons the Venom symbiote and the 2 fight yet again. Just as Venom's about to reveal Spider-Man's identity, Black Cat shows up and stops him. Then, Spider-Man activates an alarm and is able to contain the symbiote. The police show up and detain both Eddie and Kasady. As they sit together in the cell, Kasady gives Eddie some of his backstory, growing up in an orphanage in town and being abused everywhere he went. All of a sudden, Kasady gets consumed by a new symbiote, Carnage, and breaks free. The 2 of them go back to Peter's house and take back the Venom symbiote before attacking Aunt May and leaving her for dead. After she's taken to the hospital, Peter ends up burning his costume. He gets down on his luck about everything, until Uncle Ben appears and gives him a heart-to-heart, giving him a new sense of purpose. Then we see Peter make a new suit to go back after Venom and Carnage. Sometime later, Jameson's son and his girlfriend are about to get jumped by a gang, when Felicia shows up in a new black cat costume and kicks their asses. As all that's going on, Eddie has a change of heart, not wanting to side with Kasady. Spider-Man ends up tracking Carnage to his old orphanage, which he intends on burning down. The two fight and Carnage ends up impaling Spider-Man, nearly killing him. But all of a sudden, Venom intervenes and takes out Carnage. During the fight, Spider-Man dies. To save his life, Eddie gives Peter the Venom symbiote and it ends up bringing him back. But just then, Carnage kills Eddie. Once he's revived, Spider-Man, now wearing the symbiote, finally defeats Carnage, and then he destroys both of the symbiotes. Afterward, as May gets released from the hospital, Peter runs into Dr. Connors, who's impressed by his work, despite him never being in class. Then, for whatever reason, Jameson is surprisingly praising Spider-Man for his heroics against Carnage. In the end, Peter and Felicia have a heart-to-heart, and then Spider-Man swings off into the night. The end. This was really well done. It felt like a theatrical film for sure. Venom was awesome, Carnage was awesome, the suits were really cool, and I also liked the guy who played Peter. He did a great job. The whole cast did. And Felicia was a nice touch instead of having Mary Jane. But from what it sounds like, this was the finale in a long line of Spidey films. So at some point, I'm going to have to probably review all the other ones as well. Anyway, it was definitely worth a watch. If you want to see this one for yourself, head on over to Six Side Studios' YouTube channel. And that does it for this episode of Fan Film Friday. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.